Welcome to the Naming the Real podcast, a resource for people who long to live free and grounded lives in the midst of polarized times. We explore the intersections of culture, philosophy, science, and spiritual practice in order to cultivate lives of wisdom, discernment, clarity, and human flourishing in the midst of a chaotic world. And welcome to the podcast. My name is Brandon Cook. In the last couple of episodes, I've been making a case for what I have called unitive centrism, this idea that reality is not A or B, but A and B in tension. So it's not collapsing into one side, but finding the right tension and proportion that matters. You think about relationships, for example, all the tensions that we hold in a relationship between flexibility and commitment, connectedness and freedom to individuate. All reality is about finding the right proportion, including in our politics, conservative and progressive, Republican and Democrat. Unitive centrism is an appreciation that we need the other side and that the other side has something which is critical for the success of our own argument. When we ignore that reality, we falter as a people, as a culture, and as a society. Now, unitive centrism has a great enemy, and that enemy is purity cultures. Purity cultures. Let me start with a story. In ancient Athens, every spring, there was a festival called the Thargelia, and it was meant to cleanse and purify the city. And part of the ritual involved two people, usually the most marginalized, the most undesirable or ugly, being selected as what were called the pharmakoi. And the pharmakoi, these two individuals were paraded through the city, and then they were expelled from the city. And some scholars believe that in the earliest versions of this ritual, these individuals were actually killed, thrown from a cliff and killed. This is an example of a purity culture and illustrates how purity cultures work. A purity culture is any system that tells us who's in and who's out and gives us a way to secure our place on the inside. We find the others, the bad ones, the wrong ones, and we throw them off of a metaphorical cliff. And when we do that, we feel clean and good and pure again. Jesus, as an example, died because of purity culture, was killed because of purity culture. His morality was transcendent of the culture around him, but he treaded on the purity culture of his own day, and you can easily get killed for that. So a purity culture is a system that has mandated ways of knowing who's in and who's out, who's good and who's bad. And anytime there is a clear line between the righteous and the wrong, and a mechanism for excluding or shaming or even killing the wrong ones, you're looking at a purity culture. Now, this is not just ancient history. Social media does it. Religious systems still do it. Political systems do it. Now, to understand why purity cultures are so powerful, you have to understand something about what it means to be human. You have to understand, in fact, the deepest drives in our being. At the deepest level, every human being wants the same thing: to be seen, to be known, and to be held without fear, to be loved, and to see and know and hold and love in return. And this longing creates incredible, almost unbearable tension because we're constantly in the dynamic of please see me, get the hell away from me. We want to be seen, but at the same moment, we are terrified of being rejected. A first love or a first crush is incredible because there's a chemical rush of I could be seen, this rush of possibility, and at the same time, truly being seen beyond lust and infatuation, there's an element of terror to it. So we live in this strange, constant dynamic. Please see me. Please don't see me. Come close. Stay away. I've called this on this podcast the barbaric impulse. We have a barbaric desire to be known, but there's also a barbaric, screw you, get the hell away from me. And all human beings are in this tension. It is, in many ways, what makes us human. In my marriage, I experience this often. This past weekend, I got quite spun out about something and I was lying in bed and I really wanted comfort. I really wanted to connect with my wife. I wanted her to ask me questions. But when she when she made bids for connection, I also felt really protective of myself, and I experienced a tremendous level of energy pushing her away. So there's this barbaric desire I have to be connected with her, and I also have barbaric energy at times to push her away. These impulses towards and away from define our human existence and our experience. And so our state carries a natural level of anxiety. Am I going to be seen? Am I going to be known? Or am I going to be rejected? This is the ultimate human conversation we are all in. Will I be loved? Will I be put to shame? Shame is the great fear that we would be rejected and put to shame. And this is where purity cultures enter the room, because purity cultures offer us a solution. Purity cultures are actually designed to deal with all this anxiety and the possibility of shame. What if we can manufacture a way of knowing we are good? Purity culture lets us make ourselves good, worthy of admiration, acceptance, and if we're lucky, love. I mean, it doesn't actually make us good, but it makes us feel good about ourselves. Now, there's all sorts of purity cultures. Instagram, social media is actually a type of purity culture in many of its manifestations. The impossible beauty standards, the photoshopping, this confirmation to norms about what's considered desirable. And if you measure up, you're good, you're in, you're safe. There are also religious purity cultures, of course, probably the most familiar, the most ubiquitous type of purity cultures. I grew up in evangelicalism. We literally called it later we called it purity culture, but we called it, the quest for purity. Don't have bad thoughts. Good luck. Um, don't watch porn. Don't have sex before marriage. And if you do these things, that'll make you pure and that'll make you good. And then God will bless you and everything will work out. And of course, that was all half truths and hogwash. But religious purity cultures are innate to our sociology and they show up continually in our theology. Read the Bible and notice how often purity cultures are present. And Jesus' mission is to decenter and to dethrone purity cultures so people can actually experience the divine. And then there's political purity cultures. On the left, you have Democrats who not only scapegoat Republicans, but also scapegoat members of their own party or members of the left who are not progressive enough, who don't play identity politics enough. I think Kamala Harris, in my opinion, was a great example of a weak candidate because she's an ideologue. She doesn't do much thinking. Most of our politicians now, they just check ideological boxes, purity boxes, purity purity code boxes on the left or the right. Of course, on the right, you also have Republicans who scapegoat progressives as America haters. Everybody tends to scapegoat someone who's not in their purity culture. Purity cultures create really clear in groups and out groups. Endless examples of this throughout history. Racial examples, for example, white and black in America and what a white in group did to a black out group. Irish and Italians who were not considered white or pure. Religiously, Catholics versus Protestants, and on and on. Race, religion, politics. There's myriad ways to create purity cultures. And purity cultures are powerful because they do two incredibly important things psychologically. They give us certainty, and in a world with so much uncertainty, this is powerful and compelling. And beneath that, they convince us that we're good and that we are worth admiring and we are worth loving, which is our deepest longing. And so, this sense of certainty and goodness quells our anxiety. Now, we all need tribes and purity codes to help us grow, to learn that there's an up and a down and a right and a wrong. But if you don't transcend purity culture, they can become the greatest impediment to our maturation, our maturity. Because reality is not simply A or B, in or out. The first exercise here, as it generally is at naming the real, is to name the dynamics of our humanity and of purity cultures, to name them, to label them, to name the basic human desires, our desire to be known, seen, and held, and to know, see, and hold, and to name the fear of rejection, the fear of shame. Many people live on automatic without doing this important naming, and it can keep us stuck. Part of how we get unstuck in life is by naming these realities, what we deeply long for, what we deeply fear. Second, to start naming the lines in the sand and the sacred cows of our own purity cultures. Consider this. How much of what you were taught or believed, maybe in your religion, in my case, in evangelicalism, was just the outworkings or the expression of a purity culture? Not thoughtful, God engaging spirituality, but just purity codes. Or maybe your political beliefs were just the sacred cows of a purity culture. Now, most of us have never been taught to see these things, let alone to name these realities. Once you name them, again, you can't change what you can't name. Naming allows us to step off of automatic. We can step out of the matrix, which is critical, not only for our own lives, but for the world and culture and society around us that we can impact. So in the next few episodes, I'm going to talk more about purity cultures and how to transcend them, how to pursue unitive centrism. Join me. I'll be back soon. Until then, may we live with courage and hope for the sake of the world. Thank you for listening to the Naming the Real podcast. As always, would you please share this podcast with a friend? Help us grow. Also, can we ask you to rate and review the podcast? We'd be very grateful. If you'd like more information on coaching or our training and intensive experiences through Naming the Real, or if you'd like to submit a question, or if you'd like to become a financial donor, which helps make possible the creation of resources like these, please visit namingthereal.com. That's naming the REAL.com. I will be back soon with more episodes. Until then, may we live lives of courage and hope that help change the world. We'll talk soon.